Hello, everyone. Ishkia Page here. I have been asked several times to do a kind of a recollection of my journey with Wildfit, before and after Detox, all that kind of stuff. I'm going to try and keep it as concise as possible because if I told you everything, I'd be here for 2.5 hours at least. So I'm not going to do that. But what you can do is kind of segregate the video and perhaps, use the timeline to get you to certain sections. So first section, I'll go over my history. And most of my adult life, starting in my 20s at least, if not in the teens, I have been struggling with my health and weight gain, mysterious weight gain, weirdo stuff. I mean, weirdo stuff. And blood tests would be off the charts, but nobody could tell me why. It was just like really weird, mysterious stuff. And though I had my challenges in life, I don't consider myself to be in some kind of I was in a really bad, emotional state all the time. I always kept myself going, always researching, always looking for the healthy option. I mean, I was just geared that way. And however, I grew up in a smokestack house. Basically, I called it a smokestack house because my parents smoked like stacks constantly. I'll never forget going out of the door one time, and I looked back to wait for my sister to come out of the door, and you could see the smoke billowing up out of the door from the cigarette smoke. So I just, it was just not a great healthy environment all the way around on many levels. So I won't go get into all that, but I really have a strong suspicion that contributed to some of my issues. Like I have peripheral vascular disease. And at one point I had 5 autoimmune diseases, including, see if I can remember them all: fibromyalgia, Buerger's, vasculitis. I had all the weirdest symptoms of being diabetic, but I was never diabetic, which was kind of weird. Really bad, deteriorating sores on my legs. In 2008, in 1 year, every month on average, I would gain 10 cholesterol points and between 10 and 20 pounds a month, per month. And so it got to the point where I was way over 300 pounds. And so all of my symptoms just kept getting worse. 3 times I was given 2 or 3 months to live. I've had cancer, all kinds of stuff. I mean, one weirdo thing right after another. Every single vaccination I had, I got the disease. Every single one. So it's like weirdo stuff. Whee! All right. So anyway, it got to the point where I couldn't function. I couldn't think. I was so toxic. And I knew what was happening because I actually worked in a natural health and wellness center and did work in physical therapy and educational kinesiology. And I did an apprenticeship in acupuncture. So, I mean, I did all this stuff to myself, and it just weirdo stuff just kept happening. It's really weird. So basically, before I started Wildfit, my immune system just started totally shutting down. I had to crawl to the bathroom, and then I would have to crawl sideways because my knees couldn't take the weight. Or either I would have to slide up against the wall for a while, as long as I could with a cane, and then I would have to get on the ground. It was just bad. You know, it was just really bad. And I'm very candid. I mean, I had a hard time doing simple things. I couldn't wipe my butt. I would have to cram my elbow up against the corner of a wall just so I could wipe my tail end. And putting on a shirt. Oh my gosh. I remember one time it took me 35 minutes to put on a shirt and a pair of pants. Yeah. And I was so out of breath. It was unbelievable, just to give you an example. So I have a long way to go. Don't get me wrong. However, at one time they told me that that unless I had some kind of weight loss surgery, there's all kinds, but unless every 5 years or so, I would have to have some type of weight loss surgery, because almost everything that had anything to do with my metabolism was either shut down or deteriorating, just to stay alive. Basically I was blowing up. And it just sounds really off the wall. It sounds like a story from outer space. I felt like I was living a life from outer space or something. I don't know. It's just really weird. I just had one issue right after another. You know, weird eyesight issues. You know, it was just, 1 second, half my vision, not closing in, but even just half my vision would just totally just black out, and just weird stuff. It got to the point where when I would try and get into a lukewarm bath, and when I say lukewarm, I mean mostly cold. And because of the temperature difference, just that little bit would cause all of my fluids to go to the surface of my skin, and it looked like I had third-degree burns or bubbles or blisters or whatever. Be anywhere between 1 inch and 3 inches across. It was just wacky. And one time I was like so astounded that I was carrying around these blisters of fluid. I actually bled the blisters once and put them in a measuring cup just to see how much fluid came to the surface, just to give my mind something to do. I know it sounds gross, but I got a cup and 3/4 off of one leg. Kid you not, a cup and 3/4 of fluid. Just awful. So anyway, you have, without going into any more detail, you have enough to know that I wasn't doing well. In fact, the month before I started Wildfit, I knew in my gut, in my inside, that I wasn't going to last long. I mean, I knew I was on my way out, and I was really okay with it. And the pain in my body was just insurmountable. I couldn't do anything with my hands because of the peripheral vascular disease. It was so bad. There was just everywhere I looked, it looked like my limbs were rotting, and because of the sores and stuff, it's just so diabetic looking. But I check my blood sugar, and I'm not diabetic. Finally, the guy back in 2008, at the end of 2008, the doctors had given up and said, all we can do is send you to a psychiatrist and get you some pain management and help you pass easily or more easily. So it's like, wow. And before they did that, before my insurance for my medical would cover anything else, they sent me to basically for a cruel word, a fat farm, education courses, because they didn't believe my logs. And for 12 years I was vegetarian, and then for 7 years I was raw foodist. And at that point in time I was raw, and they didn't believe, they thought I was lying, because everything was so whacked out and I was so large. So in order to go on any further, they had to send me to this education. And it was about 2 hours in, and they said, well, you need to eat canned green beans instead of fresh. It's like, what? I was like, what? I just thought, I raised my hand. I said, wait, did I get you right? And said, did you say eat canned green beans instead of fresh? Yes, ma'am, I did. And I said, why? There's no nutrition in it. It's full of salt, and it's basically empty fiber. And I'm not even sure it's even fiber at that point. And she said, but it has less calories. Duh, of course. Holy crap. So I just stood up and I picked my stuff up and I said, I really appreciate your time and everything, but I believe I've learned about as much as I can possibly learn for my benefit here. And I left and I wrote doctors off. So, excuse me, my dog is totally trashing my my desk. So anyway, I just left the medical industry. I swore I'd never go back. All the steroids and experimentation and all that kind of stuff, and it just never worked. It made everything worse, but they wouldn't listen to me. So I start Wildfit as it was my last ditch effort to give myself a chance, to give myself my all. I never gave up on myself. And that's probably what kept me alive, that and actually eating healthy, even though I wasn't eating healthy the right way. There was a couple of missing pieces. And even when I was a raw foodist, I was missing a couple of pieces that were really important. So anyway, on to my Wildfit journey. And this is kind of the section where we get into all the detox symptoms and my journey during Wildfit and a little bit after. So getting into that, when I first started, let me turn my phone off here. If I can learn how. I just learned how to do anything today.
Text message.
Whee! Text message. All right, so phone's off. I meant to do that before the video, so y'all can just laugh at me. Anyway, I started Wildfit, and I've made a promise to myself that no matter what, I was going to give everything I had, because I didn't have much else to give, and I knew I was on my way out. So it was kind of like almost my last footprint is how I kind of looked at it, my very last footprint, because I kind of knew I was leaving. I knew that if nothing changed, I was leaving, but this was my last ditch effort. And so it was kind of funny, because 2 weeks or so whatever, 3 or 4 weeks into Wildfit, it was the week before the grains were eliminated, and it was Thursday, and I'll never forget it. I went out and got a bread maker because I wanted to make sure I ate bread that didn't have sugar in it. And of course, Friday, the next day, we were told that the next week we were eliminating grains. So I never ate my own homemade bread again. So, because I was trying to make it easier instead of doing it by hand. So I never ate homemade bread again. So it's like, whatever. Okay, I was kind of mad at that point, but I got over it really quick. But I kept with it. I was like, nope, obviously there's a piece I'm missing here, so I'm going to keep going. I'm going to trust. You know, I'm going to believe that there's something here I'm missing, and maybe this is one of the pieces. That and dairy. I never ate a lot of dairy, but I loved butter, and from time to time I'd have cheese or whatever. So all of that wasn't a big deal to get rid of. I never drank milk. I hate milk. You know, I just never, even as a kid, I hated it. I didn't want it. And so that wasn't that big of a challenge. Now, some of the grains were a challenge because, you know, I ate a lot of grains that were supposedly healthy for you. And so, you know, it was a challenge for me, but I went with it, you know. So I just had to realize that it isn't about what I can't have. It's about what I can have. And some of the things that I can have, I'd never even had before. So I didn't just eliminate a few things. I just kind of got in the mindset of, wow, you know what? There are so many things I haven't even tried yet. Why do I feel, you know, why would I feel like, you know, I can't eat anything? So anyway, so that was going on, and it wasn't very long. And I didn't lose any weight. Most people were losing weight when you were starting eating fruit in the beginning, not me. So anyway, but I did start to detox. It was expected. I'd worked in a wellness center for many years. I just knew what was going to happen. I've been through it before, you know, so I knew it was coming. Headaches. I couldn't get any more sloggy or lack of energy. So I never really experienced any changes in the first few weeks of that at that time anyway. But so that came on, but you know, you got to remember too, also that, you know, and this is kind of my training, is I knew what was happening. And I was like, okay, the next thing that's going to happen is my third kidney is going to kick in because I'm clean. My body's cleaning. And, my body's not going to be able to keep up with it because it's just so bad. And what I mean by third kidney is your skin. It's just like a third kidney. And that's the way I've always explained it to my clients in the past, you know, way back in the 80s. And so, you know, it was just kind of crazy. And yes, of course, you know, I started brushing and all that kind of stuff and putting coconut oil on it to try and to minimize, you know, breaking out and the rashes and stuff like that. And I couldn't stay ahead of it. I mean, dudettes, I'm telling you, the detox symptoms I had were just off the wall, outer space. I mean, I would sit there and put my elbow up on like the table or my desk or whatever, and suddenly my elbow would slide like somebody put oil underneath it, and it was just goop. I remember putting my hand down like this, watching a video, because I couldn't even hold my head up much. I mean, I seriously couldn't. It was just all I could do to hold my head up. And so a lot of times I would prop my head up, and I remember feeling something trickle down my hand, and crap would be coming out of my ears, like pouring out of my ears. And just gross. And of course, my skin would crawl every time I realized what was happening, and I would make my way back to the shower. So again, I bet you I took 7-8 showers a day. I'm not kidding you. And the pain of my tissues and stuff from waking with if things waking up, and you know, it's a lot of people go and make the assumption, oh, this is hurting my body, this isn't helping my body. But I knew what was happening, so I just kept going. And the pain pockets were just unbelievable. I mean, I would sit there and I would have these spaces on my body that were absolutely so excruciating that it felt like somebody was sticking hot knives in those areas, and in a blunt way. It wasn't a sharp pain. It was just that intense. And so I just absolutely would, you know, do all kinds, you know, do my normal stuff to try and make that happen fast. I'm not going to go into everything I did because it's not really, this video really isn't about that. So, you know, I had all of those issues going on. But then I went to go get a haircut. So I took a shower so I wouldn't be embarrassed about stuff coming out of my skin. It was just like, oh, that was stressful. Usually I don't get pretty stressed out about anything much, but that was stressful because I was just felt so paranoid that I couldn't get my hair cut because people would look at me and see the scoop coming out of my skin and just freak out and, you know, whatever. So I just kind of held my breath all the way there, and I was trying to explain to the, she said, she said, what would you like to have done? And I told her, I said, I'm a little slow, I'm really sick, and, you know, I apologize ahead of time. So anyway, she asked me what I wanted, and so I ran my hand through my hair and told her, well, I kind of want this, you know, whatever. And then when I pulled my hand out, I wasn't even grabbing it, a huge clump of hair came out. And I mean, all of it in that area. And yeah. And I just remember looking at my hand going, oh my gosh, it's happening again. And I was just so out of it. You know, I made my way to get my hair cut, but I was really out of it, because all of these toxins and all of those stored steroids and drugs they gave me over the years, it was all coming out at once. And it was like ODing on all of it, not to mention all of the pain with everything waking up. So, you know, I was just kind of out of it. And you know what? The lady was just so amazing. She put her arm around me. She didn't even think twice about cringing or anything like that. She said, we can take care of this. Don't you worry. Don't you worry. Makes me want to cry right now just thinking back at it. But she was just really understanding. And all of this journey I'm logging. I'm putting it in my Wildfit Tribe Facebook group. And our group it was pretty remarkable. It was absolutely over the top remarkable. We had a lot of people with weird extenuating circumstances, all that kind of stuff. And I just thought, you know, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to go all out. I'm not leaving anything to myself. I'm just going to put everything out on the table. And all of this stuff that happened, it was actually one of the best things I ever did, because it was part of that process of being okay with it all, and kind of documenting my journey and that kind of stuff. So it was pretty amazing. I went 2 months into spring and I had not lost 1 pound. It took me 2 months to lose the first pound. 2 months. And it took me another couple of weeks to lose the second pound. I mean, it was just crazy slow, but I knew my body had to heal. My body couldn't release weight because it didn't have the equipment to release the weight. It was still learning to function again, and it was trying to get rid of, you know, because some things were waking up and getting healthier. It was, you know, I knew what was happening. It was it was trying to clean up the kitchen kind of thing. You can't cook something without cleaning up the kitchen first. If you have, 25, 30 pots and pans on the stove, kind of thing. You can't cook that way. So in order for it to cook, it had to, clean up the pots and pans, and the water was dirty, and it just went through my system, and I OD'd, and I just knew it was happening. So it was pretty remarkable. Eric and the team, Ariel and Amanda, they were just unbelievable. If it wasn't for that team and my Facebook group, I don't know what I would have done. Because I remember sitting there somewhere in the middle of all of that journey and thinking, wow, if nothing else, I've lived the past little bit of my life, just the last little bit of my life, with a group of people that were fantastic. And I cannot help but tear up because it was that impactful. So after I thought that, I was like, wow. And I remember sitting in my recliner, and my legs were up, and they were just so nasty. I mean, the sores, and I mean, it was hard for me to even put my legs up, and it was hard for me to keep them down because of the swelling and how large they were and all of that kind of stuff. And it was just, I just looked down at my legs, and I just felt so sorry for them. And I will never, ever forget me looking down at my body and saying, I am so, so sorry. And I kept talking to my body, and I said, I didn't realize just how badly I was treating you. And I am so sorry. And this wave of higher frequency energy just kind of wafted up, just because I had compassion for myself instead of hatred for my body, because I was always resentful, because I've struggled all my life with my health. And it got to the point I never realized it, but I absolutely hated my body, and my body reacted to that. So as soon as I actually gave it some genuine compassion, the energy started moving. And that was before I even lost weight. It was when I was in the middle of all of this detox stuff. It was so bad, the worst part of it, because I thought I was going to die that night. Because of all the dump, the steroids, the drugs, all that kind of stuff from all those diseases, and all, because your fat holds that. So I just thought it was on my way out. But when that happened, that's when I felt the turnaround start. Slowly, but turnaround. And I remember sitting there for hours, so grateful that I felt something good in my body. And I just kept saying to my body, oh, I'm so sorry. I am going to do my best, even in my imperfections, to always take care of you. Even if it's the last month we have to live, I'm going to do my best. So I just continued. And by the end of the year, I can't remember the exact number. It was the last time I actually weighed. But I think I lost 84 pounds. I started in August, and I think it was January. I think it was in January. I had lost 84 pounds or something. I can't remember now. But, you know, during my journey in middle of all of that, just when things started looking up a little bit, I hadn't lost but maybe 1 or 2 pounds at that point in time. I thought, well, you know, maybe my next step is to, you know, do some stretching, because they talked about a little bit of intentional movement. Well, for me, intentional movement of actually getting down on the floor was a major workout. So to make it so I could preserve energy for getting up, I slid my body down a wall and rolled over to the middle of the floor, and tried to lay down flat. And I couldn't lay down flat. If I put my legs down, my body came up. If I put my body down, my legs came up. That's how bad. And there's a medical term for it, and I can't remember what the term, the condition is. It's basically when everything is all but dead, but still living, kind of almost like a living rigor mortis kind of thing. And it took me 6 months to lay down flat on the floor. 6 months every day. That would be my exercise, is to get down on the floor and try and stretch and lay down. And finally, when I got to the point where I could lay down, I would pull my knees up and bend one way or the other really slowly as far as I could, and I just kept doing that until I could get my legs all the way to the floor, sideways with my legs bent up. So, you know, it'd be just like this, just to kind of stretch and turn my torso and things like that. Because, I mean, I remember feeling my muscles just, when they moved, they creaked, and you could literally hear it. I had my housemate was going through one time, and I was stretching, and he kept saying, "What is that weird noise?" And I said, "Why don't you come here and listen?" And so I would turn, and he could hear my muscles creaking. It felt like, you know how old elastic in like a waistband, you know, they used to have elastic in waistbands. So anyway, it's like an old rotten elastic. When you pull it apart, it kind of creaks, you know, and just lets go. There's nothing like, that's what it felt like and sounded like. So anyway, that's just kind of like all of the symptoms that I've run up into. And in the past year, it's been slow going. It's taken a long time for me to get a lot of energy, but I say in the past, 5 months, I've got a lot of energy. I've got a long way to go, but you know, I am so grateful I'm here. All of my autoimmune symptoms, like the burgers and stuff like that, I don't have any more sores on my body. I don't have any of that kind of stuff. All of the other stuff seemed to have receded as far as their progress. My peripheral vascular disease, I don't know if it will ever actually get repaired, but I know that it is better. It's still incredibly difficult to type, you know, that kind of stuff. But I am so thankful, because in my feet, I don't feel it anymore. Yay. So it gives me hope that maybe my hands will, but I'm not so sure. But you know what? Wouldn't it be nice if? So I keep meditating. I do a lot of meditation. I've done a lot of visualization, and I couldn't be more grateful. And I guess the two major things that I got from Wildfit, the pieces that I'm missing of all of my medical knowledge, all of my health knowledge. It was the missing pieces were key. And also the compassion, the energy and everything associated with compassion versus anger at my body, that kind of stuff. It was huge. And that's one of the reasons why I like Wildfit, is because they actually help you go through the process of some kind of, mental taking note of what's going on in your head. And so one of the pieces was the rotation and segregation of foods in seasons. So even when I was raw food for 7 years, I would mix, fall foods with spring foods and all that kind of stuff. And you wouldn't think it would be that bad. If you were fairly healthy at the time, you wouldn't, it's fine. But I wasn't healthy. And I don't think at any point in my entire life, I was looking back and thinking about it, I don't think my body ever burned fat, ever. I don't think it knew how. And, I just don't think it ever did. Because I don't ever remember losing weight, ever in my life, my entire life. Even as a teenager, I never lost weight. Of course, then you're still growing, but I wasn't obese then, but I've never lost weight until Wildfit. And it's very slow, even still. I'm so frustrated sometimes, but I love my body because it's working so hard. But my weight loss is so incredibly slow. I haven't lost much since Wildfit, but I'm okay with that. I have lost, but I haven't lost very many pounds at all. And I don't think. I haven't weighed because I don't want to weigh. But I am in more shape, and during the quarantine, for example, I couldn't go out to the gym, and here we're really strict here. So I couldn't go out walking. The only time I go out is the grocery store. So a few months ago, I started doing a thing on my PlayStation VR and called Beat Saber. And that was a lifesaver to me. Moving my arms around, all of the lymph, so much lymph stuff is all in your upper body. And that has been unbelievable. And for the first time in my life, literally in my life, while exercising. Now, keep in mind, I used to travel around the world with martial arts. I was selected to represent the United States on a world tour and studied with grandmasters in the Philippines and China, and you just you name it. So I have always been physically active. Amazingly, how I did it, I look back and I think it has to be just pure determination. So, but never in my life, even during that time, I never sweated. I never remember sweating. Twice. I remember once I was done with a workout or a fight or whatever in martial arts or whatever, and it was done, I would sit down, and for about 30 seconds, I felt sweat, a little bit of sweat. That's it. And then I was done. My body didn't even know how to sweat. So in the last several months, I can tell my body's actually still improving and healing, because for the first time in my life, while exercising, I am sweating. And it was the first time I felt the drop hit my shirt. I was like, what is that? And I looked down, and of course there was like, a wet spot. And People would think I was crazy if they saw me. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm sweating. Holy crap, I'm so excited. I felt like Snoopy. Whee! Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. And I was just telling everybody, and they were like, you're happy that you're sweating? Really? So anyway, you know, it's just like, you just got to humor the crazy lady. So, so I'm still seeing improvements. Almost 2 years later, I'm still seeing improvements. And a lot of, you know, I don't have the pain anymore. Sometimes, you know, every once in a while it'll creep in, but not for very long, maybe a few hours, and then it's gone. So I'm very happy. Wildfit gave me the seasons. There was the whole mental process that I really love, because that was right up my alley. And I truly think that it gave me, I've always kind of thought in third person, but because I had the blindness for my body, and anger for it, because it never really functioned the way I wanted it to, and I was always sick, I think I just didn't have that third person perspective in Wildfit. I mean, until Wildfit, to actually look at myself. And I'm just really thankful that I happened to choose to have compassion at that one moment. And it's a lesson that I will never forget. Even though it wasn't in the Wildfit criteria exactly like that, I really think that the observation of your thoughts and the observations of, okay, why might you be eating this kind of thing? I didn't really have any issues taking out any foods except when I bought that bread maker. But, but you know, it was just, I don't know what it was. I just going through all the videos religiously and continually kind of once a week giving my update out in the group and supporting others and watching them go through what they, I mean, I had compassion for them because I knew what they were going through. There wasn't a person that I couldn't identify with except for one, and they had some weird extraneous thing that I had never even heard of, so I couldn't even understand what they might be going through, but I still had compassion for it. So I think I just caught myself having compassion with myself in that whole process, and it was my lifesaver. So, you know, I got a better education of foods, even though I probably know more than most certified degreed nutritionists had at that time. When I went through Wildfit, it made it even in more deep. So it kind of put all of that crap I learned that was just, well, it's not crap, but all this stuff that I learned, and it kind of like aligned everything. It was the missing piece that aligned everything. So that was the two things, that the missing pieces that I truly were missing. And it was literally life-saving. And I tell you, if the team doing it wasn't who they were, I don't think I would be here either. So I have to give them credit for just being there and being who they were. And thankfully, Eric was very involved in our live calls at that time. And I loved how upfront he was. And I learned from what he told others. So, you know, there's so many pieces that I got from Wildfit that I can't even explain because the video is already long enough as it is. So moral of the story for me is, I've got a long way to go. I've still got quite a bit of weight to release, but I am so happy that I don't care if it takes forever. So I'm sweating. Whee! Okay, so anyway, that's about it. You know, and I hope you guys, anybody that sees this video, get some kind of encouragement, because I tell you what, I couldn't even go over everything that happened to me going through this Wildfit and the detox symptoms. There's just no way. And I just barely brushed the surface. So if anybody ever has any questions or think that I may be able to help them somehow or another, please feel free to get in contact with me. I'll be glad to help, or at least get it relayed or whatever, with whoever asks me. So I hope you guys create an amazing day, and I will talk to you maybe sometime in the future. Bye-bye.